Welcome to Timberborn and the settlement of the Evergreen. My name is Zedek, and we are playing Timberborn 1.0 on the experimental branch. This is the pressure map, which is a surprisingly tricky map because it involves pressurized pipes of good and bad water and all these unstable cores that can suddenly redirect that water. We're early game, and in this episode, I'm really looking at expanding our colony outside of our starting zone into some of these new areas that we recently made green. As we enter this episode, we are starting in the middle of a 5-day drought. Thankfully, I feel pretty secure about that given our supply of water. We do have some water stored over here, and we have a decent amount in our holding tanks. Now, between those, I think we're good, but we're definitely still not set at this point of the game. These droughts are going to get longer, and our population is going to continue to grow. But we'll take care of that in a second. First thing I would like to do is continue to bump up our population. I think on this map, I'm just going to start growing this pretty rapidly, just so we have a lot of options to work with. I'm going to continue with our large homes over here and put down some stairs. The other thing that I'm going to do while I'm here is I've really been not paying attention to the well-being of the beavers. I've got only some basic amenities. We've stockpiled a decent chunk of science. I think it's worth adding a little bit here and there for them. For example, we could throw in some basic decorations here, maybe a lantern over here. One thing I could do for a bonus for the aesthetics too is make a little roof awning like this so they can walk under. They'll just get a very minor bonus because I only think they get a bonus for it as they're actually walking underneath it. Now, some bigger ones that we could do, I would like a rooftop terrace, and so maybe I can double up on some things. If I were to put, say, a large warehouse here, use this to store some, say, additional potatoes, I could then use that to have access over here and then put our nice rooftop terrace all the way up high. And continuing the well-being train, I think the next thing I'm going to put in is going to be a place for the beavers to swim so we can keep getting that wet fur bonus. I have been a little lazy so far, and I've been relying on people using like paths going into the water to get that bonus, but this will do fine. And maybe while I'm here, I can also get a contemplation spot. This one looks really tiny. We'd be able to stick some of this right in these areas over here. Maybe a pocket over by the swimming pool. All right, a little bit of boost that will continue our growing our population. Let's talk what we're going to use that population for. At the end of last episode, I managed to get this section green. In this episode, I want to start moving up here. So for up here, there is a couple of things I'd like to get out of it. One, I'd like to start growing wheat so we can get bread. Nice big source of food. Other thing, I would like to start getting into our pine trees and trees that we don't necessarily need to cut. And the reason I'm eyeing that is I'd like to get into our wood workshop, which is going to require the sap from those trees. Finally, I think this is a really great place for us to potentially expand our dam. So for example, this is the outlet right here. This is connected to a pipe. I'm thinking if we were to dam this off somewhere, I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly at this height, but if you imagine we dam this up all the way to the top, it'd be relatively cheap. We'd get all this water here, and technically this dam could feed into this dam as a backup supply because these are still connected via the pipe network right through here. So that's what we're going to do. The other thing we can do up here is we've got another set of flowing water. This would be another good place to put a bunch of water wheels, and we could harness this for more energy. So that's a lot of plans for this small area. Let's get things going. So you can imagine right here, this is going to be where I'd have the water wheels. So we're going to need some road across the street here as people come up. So maybe we can do something on this side, and we'll have another bridge over here. To start, because I don't like wasting trees, let's put a few spare lumberjacks over here. We are going to cut down all of these trees. Once these are clear cut, I think this is going to be a nice tree grove for us. And for over here, this side is going to be additional farmland. So let's put down 2 farmhouses there, and this is all going to be wheat. Now, this is going to be at risk in the beginning of running out of water. Wheat, unlike some of the other food, is very particular to water. So while I'm going to get this planted, we're also going to go up here, and we're going to start making the plans for this dam. Now, for the dam, the bottom portion is definitely going to need to be fed by sluice gates. So that will be whatever we have at the river here. Let's target something like this. Now, as we're getting into this game, I've been doing very like brute force building. I think at this point, we're also able to start affording different cranes, like different ways of building this stuff more effectively. We're still very early in the game, so I don't have like a ton of science, but maybe we can splurge for one of these bridges like this. And what that's going to allow us to do is beavers can hang off the edge of this bridge and then build everything underneath it, so we could stack up and make use of all these builders that we've invested in. Oh, and I almost forgot one of the most important parts when we're building dams like this. We need some way to be able to allow water to overflow at the very top. I'm going to put dams at the very top here so that when this thing fills up and there's nowhere else for this water to go, it's just not going to spill over everywhere. And wow, we just have so much green space to work with here. What other things could we do? We could always use more trees. Like as we get into this game, I'm going to build all sorts of crazy things. I think it's fair to just populate this with a ton of oak trees. Now, I'm not going to commit to this forever. We can probably move some of this stuff around, but I do like taking advantage of the space while I've got it. And the other technique I'm going to do here is I'm going to reserve some of my valuable real estate for those trees, so we can put some large piles for those logs on top of water. We can put our foresters on water, and all of our lumberjacks. We're going to cut all this stuff down. That is a large build queue. We're still only halfway through this drought. Let's take a peek to see how we're doing water-wise. Now, I do notice this is starting to dry up. So I wouldn't surprise me if we lose all this space here before this season is gone. I'm also seeing that our dam here isn't looking so great. I think it's suffering a lot from evaporation effects of this pipe network. We'll be okay, but I think this does highlight that we really do need to expand this water. Population-wise, we got lots of babies coming in, we got a lot of open beds, and we even got 7 workers without things to do. Now, while I've been eyeing this dam, the other thing I'm not happy about is you notice that during these droughts, our production comes to a stop, right? Like no water's moving, we have no power going. It would be nice to get into a renewable source of power. And for the Iron Teeth, you can make, what I call power plants, where you gain control of a bad water source. But for Folktale, our answer for that is really going to be down to windmills. Now, windmills are going to be variable because sometimes they will produce power and other times they won't, but that's why you couple it with a gravity battery. What I would really like to start working our way into is large windmills, but they're going to take paper. With that thought, maybe it's a good time to start working on paper in the background. We could unlock paper, it's relatively cheap, and we could put something in here. And just to be safe, we'll put in another power wheel. I see our well-being is slowly starting to go up. That's a good sign. But there's something I want to do up here too. I haven't really played Folktale for a while, so I've never messed around with their fast travel system, which I think, given all the construction we have all the way up here, could be a good investment. The Iron Teeth fast travel system, which I absolutely love, is a form of tubeways, and I also think it is super powerful. The Folktale have a weaker system, but a more flexible system, where you build zipline stations that they can use to zoom around the map. Now we've got all our population center up here, and we've got our construction over here. I'm thinking if we can make a zipline stations to easily get up here, it would cut down a lot of this construction time. Because what I imagine we could do is if we could find some way to stick a pylon here, we can maybe have another pylon either up high and then drop them down here. If we're being tricky, maybe we could actually send them on a pylon through this little cave here to get to the network up here. Then we can have some other station over on the other side to drop them off. Unfortunately, we don't have enough science for all of this, but we do have a lot of excess beavers in our population. I think what I'm going to do is build a bunch of cheap inventor huts, set them all as the lowest workplace priority, and just have these beavers working on this in the background. And look at that, a couple days, we already have 1,200 science. So is that enough to unlock these two things? Yes, it is. So we've got the zipline station and the zipline pylon. That is one, I guess, critique I have about the balance of this game. I find science is never really like a thing I have to worry too much about. Like maybe early game, but it's so cheap mid-game to just plop some of these down. and they work in the background, I just always seem to have an excess of science. All right, we've got 3 spots in this chain then. So I think the way this works is you click on the building, hit add connection, and then you can click where you want to go. And there's probably some limit of how far it can go. For example, it won't let me connect these. But I could connect these very cleanly. So that's our first set of connections. And now we just need another connection point up here to drop all these beavers off. I'm going to do a mix of stations here. I'm going to have a more permanent station here for the workers in this valley. And at least during the construction of the dam, I'm going to splurge on a second station up over here. And all of these stations are going to be highly prioritized before the construction of the dam itself. These stations are metal hungry, so they're going to use up a big chunk of our metal supply in the near term, but that's okay. I think the zipline stations are also going to be important for us to reach the renewable sources of metal anyways, so I'm okay with that investment. There we go. We've got our transit system all finished, and these beavers are able to get to our construction zone much, much faster. Now, while this was finishing, I did just notice we got a notice that an unstable core is about to go. It looks like this one is deep underground. It's also a massive blast radius when you look at it. So it's going to widen this tunnel right here. And looks like uneventful, though. We've already done some prep work for this. I think this was like a warning bomb. This one goes off with a short warning, and then we should expect this one to go off in the near future. But we've already managed to block it off by getting some beavers down in the pipes. Here we go. Widened this gap, disturbed all the water. It rushes in. Yeah, not a problem. I think long-term, too, we should look at other ways of getting this bad water solved at the source. I think the source of all the bad water comes somewhere up here at this bad water source. Late game, if we could redirect this off the map, we could reclaim a lot of this pipe network for ourselves for good water, which is going to go a long way to our goal of Evergreen. The diversion with the bomb aside, I think my next step is really getting this dam finished. Once we get this dam in, I'm going to feel a lot better about my ability to keep this upper valley green, and then we can go back to expanding our population. As I'm waiting for this dam to finish, we did get hit with a 4-day bad tide. I do not think that changes anything for us, though, because we've got our diversion system over here, which stopped bad water from entering into the pipe. Now, that bad water that was originally in the pipe, you can see it being redirected here. And here's something else that I didn't realize. So remember that bomb that we just saw go off? I didn't really consider it a threat of redirecting water. But what I didn't consider is that there is a bunch of pent-up demand or pressure for water over here that was being forced into this pipe. Now, what's interesting is when this outlet became available, all this water in this pipe chose to go out this direction instead. Now, that doesn't impact us because we already got hit by Tricky Mapmaker last episode, and we built this wall. But if I hadn't have that wall built, this water would have unexpectedly flowed here. As I said, eventually I would like to do things to get rid of this bad water or contain it. And to do that, we're going to need dynamite. And dynamite, one of the core things that involves is, in fact, getting our own bad water, which we haven't been doing. We do have a handy bad water source right here next to our colony. We can unlock bad water pumps and just start pumping it into some storage. This will just be a background investment for us while we finish up the dam. And we're making good progress there. My guess is that we'll finish this before the next drought. Now, looking at the construction here, I'm not sure if we're bottlenecked by log supply or haulers or builders. I'm seeing our stockpile of logs slowly catch up, so that leads me to think probably builders. So as our population grows, we could be eyeing some additional builder huts. And done. This is perfect timing because the bad tide ended. I think we're ready to start filling this up. So the first thing I'm going to do is go down here and configure these sluice gates that I've had open all the time to only allow water through to a certain depth. Now, if everything works as intended, we should see this dam start to fill in. Now here's the big catch. This ultimately connects to a pipe network. And so I don't know the equivalent height until we hit another outlet to the pipe network, which is over here. So eventually this pipe network will reach this height, I believe. And when it does, it's going to start draining in this direction first. Now, if we hit that other outlet first, what I would expect to see is that this dam will only go up so high and then it will top off. It won't go up any further. And actually, I just realized I made a bad mistake here. The other outlet isn't the pipe over here. The other outlet is going to be this over here, probably. They are connected, right? So I'm guessing that why it's rising so slowly is that this is rising. Well, in that case, what we can do is we can continue to increase the height of this thing. Now, I'm going to estimate we're going to need at least 2 more height here to prevent the overflowing. So for sure, we can do something about that. We're going to need 2 more sets of stairs all the way up here. And then after that, 2 additional height. Now, my fear is we're going to be playing a little bit of a game of whack-a-mole here. What I mean by that is I'm going to make this so it's no longer the highest point in this pipe network. But then probably the next highest point will become over here. Because as you can see here, this is probably 1 square from being the highest. Now, what I'm wondering is if I could get some beavers over there to resolve that problem. Because I would need somebody to get up and tear out these blockages. And that's a pretty long way to get there. As you can see, if I had dynamite, I could just burrow a hole through there and call it a day. But we do not have dynamite. And so otherwise, I'd have to get beavers across this bridge, maybe through here, and then they could climb through this tunnel and then maybe clog it up. And I've got to be careful here because I can't just like fully clog it up. I probably need to have some sort of bad water diversion system because this is still our outlet for bad water. You know what? Why not? It's going to be a slow process anyways. I could just have somebody, doing a slow burn in the background working on that. It's going to be a very long trek for some of those builders, but we can do it. We can make some stairs down into the riverbed, make a very awkward road all the way down here. And ultimately what we're going to do here, once we tear all this stuff out, is we're going to create a little bit of a diversion system. We're going to have 2 sluice gates go this way, which are going to let good water out. And then we're going to let only bad water for now out through here. I think there's a better way of doing this because eventually I will want this to be good water. But what that does do is it will push the good water in the pipe network up through here, which as you can see has a lot more headroom. So this would allow us to populate this dam here because this dam and this little chimney stack would ultimately be connected. And again, that's a super trek to get all this stuff built. To speed it up, I will haul in a little bit of logs. Yes, very tricky. This map definitely does make you think about all the ways that water works together. I enjoy it. Definitely a change from the way I normally play this game. Oh, and something I did catch though is if you look up here, you'll notice that this pipe network is actually too high. So I have to just move around the levees a little bit, and that'll give me a good perfect seal. Okay, that's good. So when this drought ends in 5 days, that should let us be able to continue filling up our dam here. You can see the water stopped rising, which tells me that it's probably starting to fill in the upper valley now, which that looks to be the case. I can see it filling the dam, and if things go as intended, we should be able to get this higher this time. And it looks like it's continuing to rise. I'm seeing it starting to turn a little bit of this lip green. Giant trees. I'm also starting to see some of our trees get ready for harvest up here, which is a great sign because now we're going to be able to do even larger construction projects. But as for this, let's zoom in on these logs and see if we can see it rising up. Yes, that looks like it's rising. See, if I follow this line at that log, I can see it going up a little bit each time. And if we look over at the pipe network that we built, you can see this is working as intended. So the water did eventually rise over here. It's not letting this stuff out because it's reserved for bad water, but it is just using this upper chimney here. And you can see it's slowly filling in with water. So we've got a little bit of time before this reaches the top, and then I would expect water to start running through here, and we're going to be able to power our water mills again. With that in mind, there is something else I would like to do here. You can see here that we've got our wheat that finally became available, but we have no way to process it, so it is more or less going wasted. Now, one of the things I mentioned I'd like to do earlier is I would like to have some access in here for refining that wheat. So I'm going to put in a couple water wheels. We're going to need to figure a way to connect them. What I'm going to do is shift things around a little bit. We're going to delete these. I'm going to put some power shafts down in here to connect these guys. We're going to shift the road a little bit. And given we have so much logging going on up here, I'm going to splurge for an underground pile to hold all that logs, which we can stick right here. With all that done, I'll put a grist mill down. That's going to give us the ability to make flour. And given I'm expecting to have a lot of bread ultimately, we're going to have one intake for wheat and this other giant storage here for flour. So ideally, we've got the wheat being stored in here, and then somebody working at the grist mill just goes back and forth between these two storages. And then ultimately, we'll have a bakery somewhere in our colony. And the bakery will be able to come in on the zip line, grab stuff from the warehouse, and then zip line back to wherever they need. And we'll probably keep like a closer storage next to the bakeries as well, but smaller. Now, as I take a look here, I do see that we started to get pine resin, but our pine resin is rapidly filling up. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of shifting here as well. And then I'm going to put another giant warehouse over here for our resin. That way we can just stockpile it up for when we need it. Now ultimately I'm overproducing power here. Long term, what I'm probably going to do is build more manufacturing up here. So I could always make a vertical shaft and get power up there sometime in the future. But speaking of running water, I would expect the water to be moving here, and I'm not seeing it move yet. So what's up with that? Because I would have expected to overflow here, but I'm still seeing it overflow here. I must have the heights not lined up perfectly. So as I look here, it looks like I am one height too low still for it to reach up here. So despite all my planning, it looks like we need yet another layer here. Yeah, this is turning out to be quite the tower when everything is done. In fact, why don't we just keep on building up? I'll build another two just to be safe, because I imagine we're going to continue to make this taller as the game progresses. All right, it took the rest of the season to finish it, but we've got a completed dam now. At this point, we're looking pretty good. We've got most of the Green Valley up here finished and in good shape. We got all these trees. We've got tons of logs. We will have some flour coming in soon. So let's see, what are a couple things we could do? Well, one that we could do is throw in a bakery to make use of all that flour that we're creating. And I think I'm going to put something relatively close to our homes over here. And to speed things up for that bakery, let's give it access to some things. Both the grill and the bakery need logs, so we can put in demand for logs over here. And we will put in a little tiny pocket of flour. As I eye what's next, I'm thinking about production and then ultimately increasing our population. Now, one of the problems that we are running into is we're going to run out of metal. Because if you look up here, we managed to pull out all of our scrap. Whatever is here is the last of our scrap, and this is the last of the metal we've got. So I want a renewable source of metal. And eyeing this, we saw earlier, there is way back in the horizon here, an underground ruin. Now, the catch with the underground ruin, in order to construct it, we are going to need treated planks. And I think we can work towards that by increasing our production over here. We can pull out some of these trees, redirect some of this road here. Then from over on this side, I think we can continue on planning this run of power wheels here. I have a feeling we will continue to need paper. Then we can install those wood workshop for the treated planks. And with the increased demands, I am expecting us to need additional gears. Finally, I've got this storage over here that I never used. We're going to start using that, and we're going to put our treated planks there. Good. We've got a lot of stored goods, so these buildings are being built pretty quickly. If anything, we'll probably run out of gears first, so it's good that we're building another one. What I do eye, though, is our tower is now quickly filling up with water, and now that we've topped it off. And if all goes to plan, now I would finally expect us to fill up that upper valley. So let's take a peek if it's going to work as I intended now. Well, I do see it finally getting up to the top, just like we want it. And if everything goes according to plan, I should expect these dams to start overflowing very soon. There we go. Perfect. Well, if that's working, I don't need these bridges anymore. We can get some of those planks back. And with this water starting to flow, after we deal with the initial flooding, I'm going to expect these water wheels starting to work again. Now that we have a new stable supply of water and a bunch of new open jobs that we need to fill, I'm just going to go continue our row homes down in our downtown district. And each one of these is 9 population. So for each one of these I put in, I have the option of deleting 3 of these smaller ones. So I'm going to go as far as just removing all of our old town housing. That way we can get some of this space back. In fact, I'm also going to move our fire pit somewhere up here where everybody lives. If we delete one of those temporary inventor huts, we can probably fit in a couple here. As I look in here, we can start looking at bigger storage of water. Because one of my concerns with increasing our population is having a reliable source of water for them. So long term, I think what I'm going to do is make this like the hydration station. This is going to be where we're going to store a lot of water. I'm going to splurge, though, for now, to make one large tank over here. And I'm going to plan on long-term having just a run of large tanks all through here. I'm also eyeing, as we continue to get treated planks, some large water pumps in here would provide some more efficient pumping. That will probably take a while to build. It looks like gears is our bottleneck. We've got everything except for that. And gears is similarly the bottleneck we're expecting over here for our wood workshops. Between them, I think they should get the gears first. You know, one of the things I'm realizing is instead of having both of these be used for treated planks, I can mix in dynamite in here. We don't have an explosives factory yet. It takes the same amount of space, also takes gears. We'll get some of those coming in. And if we shift some buildings around over here, we could probably even make space for a little bit of dynamite storage. Dynamite storage is one that I expect us to go through like random times where we're going to need a lot of it. So I'm going to splurge, even though we don't have an immediate need, just for a giant warehouse. All looking very good. And while we've got metal left, I know I'm going to have a tendency to spend this thinking that I still have more, but we are out. 108 metal blocks is what we've got for the near-term future. Before I spend that on other stuff I don't need, I want to make room for getting over here to this mine. And I think the easiest way to do that would be to build pylons just to extend the infrastructure that we've already got. So for example, if I could get somebody here and finally another pylon over here, I could almost make a station. So I think I might need multiple pylons here. This is as far as I can get before it complains. And then my final pylon station, it's still too far. We'll probably need one other pylon here, followed by whatever the pylon station is to work at the mine. So if that's our long-term investment, we're going to need beavers to actually get there the hard way to begin with to build those pylons. So I'm going to build a temporary road all the way through here, just so they can get to each of those, and then I'm going to tear out these roads. Now roads have a little bit, I noticed, CPU overhead when they are present, because the beavers have to path through them. Right now the game is still running nice and crispy, so I'm not worried too much. But as the game progresses, I'm going to have to make sure to clean up all of these. Otherwise it's going to slow a bunch of stuff down. Now the reason I put the zipline station up here is I want to reserve some space for storage, for them to dump all the ruins and scrap in close. And that way haulers can just zip line in through here, get the storage, and then zip line out back to wherever it is we're refining it. It's been a couple of days, and we've almost finished our manufacturing in here. You can see we just finished our explosives, we've got everything connected, but this is revealing another problem. All these buildings, all this manufacturing is drawing a lot of power, say 1,300. And we only are producing 800 or a little bit over 800 horsepower. So we really need to step up our power production game here. One thing that we could do that is relatively cheap is we could continue this run here. And with that, we could probably fit in 2 additional wheels, provided we can somehow connect it with power. Well, something I could do to get around that is just raise the bridge a bit and run the power underneath. Give us a nice view down the run of power wheels, and would even give us some space for some additional manufacturing over here. That is going to do nicely. And, you know, maybe something I can do so I'm not always running into this situation where I have like no power during droughts. Let's splurge with our first couple of windmills. I think these have to be 2 apart, so I could potentially put 2 of them right here. And once they're built, I could add my paper factory back in again. All right, that's looking good. That, I think we're at a good spot to stop this episode. Our industry is massively expanded. We've got all that new upper valley completely populated. So going into next episode, I'm looking at mines, I'm looking at explosives, and starting to plan how I can start turning more and more of this map green. If you guys have enjoyed this episode, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps the YouTube algorithm. And with that, I hope to catch you next time.